Have you played the Sonic the Hedgehog series? It's so much fun. So in this video, I'm specifically talking about the mainline Sonic the Hedgehog games for the Genesis, which there is 4, but depending on how you want to look at it, there could be considered 3, because if you're familiar with the history behind Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, they were supposed to be one giant game, but ultimately they split them up into 2 separate games. So the question is it a trilogy or a quadrilogy? Because technically they're supposed to be one big game, but you can play them separately, which would make them 2 separate games, even though they were intended to be one big game. But you could also hook Sonic and Knuckles up with Sonic 2 and play as Knuckles in that one, but that doesn't change my argument that it's multiple games. Let's just call it a quad trilogy. Sonic wasn't Sega's first attempt at a mascot. That honor goes to Alex Kidd. He was their previous attempt to go up against Mario, but he sucks. So once Sonic came along, they decided he's cool. He's got attitude. He seems more popular than the little shit we had. He's the mascot now because reasons. And you know, I think it was a better choice. You know, it's nothing against Alex Kidd, but like, come on, Sonic. When it comes to Sonic 1, it's never been my personal favorite. Out of the 4 games, it's hands down my least favorite. It almost felt like a blueprint in a way, because it's like everything that they did right in here, they improved upon in the other games. Like this one, it doesn't have spin dash, so you can't just hold down and mash your A button to charge up your spin and then fly. That's not a thing. But in Sonic 2 onwards, they added that. Sonic games back then didn't really have an in-depth story. And the levels, like, I didn't really care for many of the level designs in this. Outside of Green Hill Zone, which is the first zone or stage, they weren't as good as future Sonic games. Like Green Hill Zone, obviously like one of the most iconic levels in the series. And then after that, you got Marble Hill Zone. And I don't remember any of the other ones off the top of my head. They just seem kind of bland and boring compared to future Sonic games, where you had, you know, Casino Zone, Mushroom Hill Zone, Angel Island Zone, you know, just to name a few. They were so much more like just out there. And with this one, it wasn't just the fact that the levels felt kind of bland, but you know, Sonic has always been about speed. And the first level did a good job of showing that. But I feel once you get to the second like zone, which was Marble Hill Zone, the speed almost takes a back seat, and they kind of focus a little bit more on platforming, which, I mean, it's fine to have a good balance, but I don't feel it has quite that balance. I feel they nailed that in Sonic 2 onward. I don't really like the first one. They did add like spin dash to future games like the Sonic Origins collection, which helps it, but it's still just not quite up to par with Sonic 2, 3, and Knuckles, in my opinion. And it, you know, it was an early game in the 90s, so it didn't really have much of a story. You just had to stop Dr. Robotnik or Eggman. Let's call him Eggbotnik. Anyways, you had to stop Dr. Eggbotnik from getting all the Chaos Emeralds and save the animals in the process. It was very simple, you know, nothing crazy. Then we get to Sonic 2. You know, the probably more iconic game. While I think Sonic 3 is better, I think this one was probably the most popular, mainly because it was included with the Genesis. The story was ultimately kind of the same. You had to stop Dr. Eggbotnik from getting all the Chaos Emeralds because he needed to harness their power for his evil deeds. You know, once again, nothing crazy. But if you collected all the 7 Chaos Emeralds, guess what? You can use them. You can go fucking Super Saiyan and they just fly through the level like way faster than normal Sonic and kill like anything you touch. It was just, seeing that for the first time was just crazy. I mean, nowadays it's like, oh yeah, Super Sonic, but when you actually saw it for the first time and was able to use it, it's like, what the fuck? Then they added your little buddy Tails. Ultimately, he was kind of useless. He was just there. You'd be going about your business and you just see him run into something and die. It was kind of funny. You know, you can play 2 players in this, and that's where the second player comes in, is they play as Tails. The problem with that is the camera follows Sonic, so Tails is just kind of like all over the place. It doesn't really feel like he's contributing. The main thing he can do is pick up Sonic and kind of carry him across a gap, but other than that, he's just a fucking punching bag. And with this game, I feel like they did figure out that balance of platforming and speed. Like, the levels flow so much better, and like I said earlier, there's so much more iconic, you know, with Chemical Plant Zone and Emerald Hill Zone, which was a ripoff of Green Hill Zone. Then of course you had like Oil Ocean, and you know, Spin Dash finally arrives, so you can just charge up and go. Even though when I got my Genesis, I did get both Sonics 1 and 2. I did play Sonic 2 first, mainly because it was the one that was in the console when I opened it. So I'm like, well, I'll play that one. It's there for a reason, right? And that might be partially why I'm turned off by Sonic 1, because it's like I took a step back. But this game does actually kind of lead into the beginning of Sonic 3, because Dr. Eggbotnik wanted the Chaos Emeralds to power his space station. And of course, you thwart his plan, and his station crashes down to the planet. Thus begins Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Like, you already have all 7 Chaos Emeralds. It starts off with Sonic in supersonic mode, going to the island where the space station crashes. And what happens? You slam into some random echidna, because that's a common animal. Knuckles takes the Chaos Emeralds and he bolts. So the story behind Sonic 3 and Knuckles is Eggman, at the end of Sonic 2, his space station crashed down and he found the Master Emerald, and he comes across Knuckles and tricks him into thinking Sonic is the bad guy. Ultimately, Dr. Eggbotnik was just using Knuckles and betrayed him, and Knuckles teams up with Sonic. You know, he was kind of like an early version of Shadow, where he was like the edgy guy that's the bad guy, but now he's a good guy. It is kind of a similar story to Sonic 2, where Eggman wants to use the Master Emerald to power his space station. Sonic 3 and Knuckles did introduce multiple things, such as actual power-ups in this game. While the previous ones did have things like invincibility and speed boost and a shield, these ones had actual new power-ups. There was like the bubble that would let you breathe underwater, so you didn't have to listen to that iconic, terrifying sound effect. You also had like the electric shield, which would like magnetize rings to you. And there was the flame power up that would let you kind of charge through things. And of course, Sonic did actually have his own little additional attack, where when you jumped, if you hit the button again, he'd do this little razor attack. But you could also play as Knuckles in this game, who played differently than Sonic and Tails. He could glide and climb up walls. That made the game feel very different, where you could just, if you can't figure out how to get up it with Sonic, you just climb it with Knuckles. Depending on who you play as, the game is slightly different. You know, when you play as Sonic, you would fight Dr. Eggbotnik, but when you'd play as Knuckles, you'd fight just some like random robot. I don't know, there wasn't really any like reasoning behind what they were. It's just because Knuckles sided with Dr. Eggbotnik. It's like, why would you fight him? But of course, later at the end, you do have a different ending, because while Sonic would go into space and defeat Eggbotnik, Knuckles' ending actually takes place after Sonic's, where the Master Emerald falls back down and Dr. Eggbotnik tries to take it. But, you know, Knuckles stops him because he realizes that he was the bad guy, not Sonic. And speaking of Dr. Eggbotnik's fights, I have to comment on them. It was so interesting to see what kind of contraption he would have for his next fight. Then you have the bonus stages. The bonus stage in the first one wasn't really that great. You just kind of like bounced around and tried to get as many points as you could before you hit the exit. But in the second one, they put you in a half pipe and made it kind of 3D. And you just had to collect as many coins as you could before you reach the end, so you get the Chaos Emerald. Sonic 3 and Knuckles had probably the most popular of the ones, at least as far as I know, where you had to turn all of the blue spheres red just by touching them. But if you touched a red one, it would immediately end it. And of course, these got faster and faster as you progressed through the game. But at the end of the day, the classic Sonic games are of course classic. That's why they're classic Sonic games. Duh. But I always grew up with Sonic and Mario, and I always enjoyed Sonic, but I feel I've grown to like them more now than I did back then. I think part of that, honestly, has to do with the fact that I've played the Sonic Origins collection, which kind of does away with the whole lives and continue system. If you die, you can just recontinue from the last checkpoint, which, you know, games back then were intended to be harder because they weren't as long. So they wanted you to keep playing it to get better, to try and beat it, rather than giving you a checkpoint every 5 seconds like modern games. But yeah, Sonic, great games, simple. Before they got super complex with storylines and the bestiality. We won't talk about that. Have you played the Sonic games? Do you like them? Do you have memories with them? Do you struggle on certain levels? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. And as far as we're concerned, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 doesn't exist.